Yeah, we're talking about changing the world, and it's how we change the world. It's coming together the way we do, and knowing, recognizing that it's up to us to be open, to be receptive, to be mindful, to keep open the doors of our hearts. That's how we change the world. We've been talking this month about living in and with integrity. We've been talking this month about recognizing the intrinsic value in each and every person with whom we come in contact. We've been talking about connecting with each other. This is the kind of change that's going to come. This is the kind of change that's going to happen as we go through our lives, living out these things that connect us, living out these things that bring us together, living out these things that make us more and more aware of our oneness with the all that is. Living out what we talk about here on Sundays, what we say we believe, walking that walk, walking our talk. This is how we change the world, because we change our own world and we begin to change the world around us, because all of us, each of us is connected, and we touch the lives of someone with whom we come in contact, and there's a ripple effect that happens as we go through our lives, and that's how the world changes. That's why it's up to us to change the world. And so one of the ways that we'll be looking at today of changing the world is embracing the diversity in oneness. Embracing the diversity in oneness. Embracing the diversity in oneness. Think about that. There's diversity in oneness. Ernest Holmes says that all come from the one. All come from the one. And that all of us come from the one, we live in the one, and we live by the one. That many come from multiplicity, but the multiplicity does not contradict the unity. So let me say that again. All come from the one. All come from the one, live in the one, and live by the one. Multiplicity comes from unity. Multiplicity comes from unity. But the multiplicity does not contradict the unity. And so what I say is that diversity comes from oneness. Diversity comes from the oneness. But the diversity does not contradict or dilute the oneness. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, diversity. That's what we see all around us is diversity. Differences, uniqueness. Oneness does not mean sameness. That's what we mistakenly believe sometimes, that oneness means sameness. Being one, being a part of the one, doesn't mean that we're all the same. Thank goodness. Wouldn't that be something if we were all the same? Diversity does not mean separation. It just means difference. And so what we have to do is to come to learn to embrace our differences. Learning to embrace our differences, learning to accept our differences, learning to honor our differences, and learning to know that out of all the differences that we have, out of all diversity that is around us, that oneness is still in the midst of it all. That oneness is still in the midst of it all. There's all kinds of diversity. Ordinarily, people think first of racial diversity. But there's ethnic diversity, there are languages, there's gender diversity, there's sexual orientation, there's all kinds of diversity. Anything that's different is diversity. And so what we have to do is to come to learn to be a part of that, know that it's all a part of that one power, that one presence, that one mind, that one life, that is God, and that it all comes from God. This multiplicity that comes from unity, and learning to be in a place of acceptance of that. Recognizing that the one, God, does not know differences, does not know black and white, does not know rich and poor, does not know male and female, does not know gay and straight, does not know anything but itself. Its wholeness, its completeness. It knows itself, and then it shows up as all these different things and beings. All of this diversity, all this multiplicity is the way that God shows up, always. And so when we come to recognize that, then we can come to the place where we can really start to honor and to accept and to love and to keep open the door to our hearts. Because you know what happens when we get in situations of diversity and we don't really be in a place of acceptance? It can bring up distrust, it can bring up suspicion, it can bring up dishonor, it can bring up disrespect. And we are beginning to see that so much in our world today. What we want to learn to do is to be in that place of openness, that place of acceptance, that place of patience, because diversity requires a lot of patience. Because there's difference. We have to learn each other. We have to learn each other, learn different ways of doing things. The first ministerial school that I went to 25 years ago, we were a small class. There were fewer than 20 of us. But we were all races, all ethnicities, gay, straight, everything, different belief systems. Everything was different. And I was so aware. I was the only religious scientist in that class. But I was so aware when I first got there of all the diversity and the oneness. And I talked a lot about diversity and oneness. And I talked a lot about oneness. I talked a lot about oneness. And so I offered our class motto, which was oneness in diversity and diversity in oneness. Oneness in diversity and diversity in oneness. And we had a T-shirt made. And I still have that T-shirt. I just took it out this week and looked at it. I still wear it sometimes. It has all the colors of the rainbow, look like big balloons. And then it has a Star of David in the center. And across the top it says oneness and diversity. And at the bottom it says diversity and oneness. And we became such a core group. The instructors, the school officials talked a lot about how different our class was because we were so close. We had such a strong bond. We spent so much time getting to know each other, getting to understand each other, and just really accepting and being in a place of love and acceptance and growth and expansion because of our awareness of our oneness in the diversity that we were experiencing. And so that's what was beginning to happen in this community as I see it. That's what can happen in our world. When we started our Vision Corps here at CLF a year and a half ago, one of the first things that came up was diversity. How much diversity there was going to be here in this community. With generational diversity, we see a lot of that. So many children were coming in. So many people of all stripes coming in. And we see that more and more and more. And as we have that happening more and more and more, we have to be aware of it. We have to be ready for it. We have to be in a place of celebration, a place of celebration of our diversity, a place of celebration of our differences. And so I want to just ask you to do three things today. First is to be awake to our differences. Be awake to our differences. Don't walk around with blindfolds on. It doesn't help to say, I don't see race. But if you don't see race, you don't see me. Or I don't see you. That's like saying, I don't see gender. You can tell that you're talking to a man or a woman. That doesn't mean that you act any differently or treat them any differently. You're just acknowledging who we are. Each of us acknowledges who the other is. And then we treat each other from that heart space, with love, with respect, with kindness, with honor, and all those things. This is how we make that big change. This is how we honor the diversity that we see here, the diversity that we are here. This is how we honor that oneness that is within each one of us, that oneness in whose image and likeness we are all made. By recognizing each other, by wanting to know who that other person is, what they believe, how they believe, cultural differences we have. Sometimes people speak with different accents. How do we treat them? How do we listen for those? We can ask questions about them. There's nothing wrong with asking somebody a question about their culture, about their racial background, about their orientation, about anything you want to know about them with respect and honor, and recognizing that it's okay for us to be different because that's what diversity is all about, and that's what multiplicity is all about, and that's what oneness is all about. Because if oneness were sameness, oh my goodness, it would be awful. We would be bored out of our minds because we would all look alike, we would all sound alike, we would all talk alike, we would all act alike. Oh, my goodness. But as it is, we don't. And so when we wake up to our differences, then we can honor those differences. We can disagree. It's okay for us to disagree. We just don't have to be disagreeable. We can disagree with somebody who's different from us without demonizing them. Take a breath on that. We see so much of that demonizing effect in the world today because somebody's different, because somebody thinks differently, because somebody's a different political party, or somebody's a different religion, or someone's a different color, or someone's a different in any way. We don't have to weaponize our differences. This is where change happens. When we stop weaponizing differences. We honor differences. We recognize differences. We may disagree with them. But that's your right to think the way you do, and that's your right to feel the way you do. You just can't think about it all over me. You know? You just can't exercise it all over me. I've been in relationships with people and say, you know, I'm not trying to change you. You can do whatever you want to do. You just can't do it all over me. You just can't do it I don't want it in my experience. I don't want it to be a part of my experience. And you know, when we do that, we're not judging other people. We're not judging others. We're just deciding this is not what I want in my experience. I'd rather have this in my experience. And if I have this in my experience, that does not include this, and this is what you're doing. And so that's the way we can move through that time of honoring differences, recognizing our differences, yet setting the boundaries that we need to set, making the choices we need to make in order to live the life that we want to live and to remain in the consciousness, our own consciousness of being uplifted and being of the light and blessing the world as we go forth. This is how we recognize our differences. Not by making somebody else wrong, not by making somebody else the demon, not by moving into that them and us mentality, but moving into that place of oneness and honoring, accepting. That's how we change the world. That's how we change the world, starting in this room, starting with the people right here, right now. Starting with the people that we see in this community, starting with our neighbors where we live, starting with the people we work with, starting with the people who are on the highway when we're driving. I always come back to driving, don't I? You would think that I do a lot of that, but I don't, except here at home and back to the church. But I hear a lot of comments from a lot of folks about their experiences of driving. And I just say, take a deep breath. And recognize we are all made in the image and likeness and out of God. Even that person who just cut you off, they just showed a little road rage coming your way. We still are all made in the image and likeness and out of God. And that's what we have to keep in mind all the time. And so as we go along through this week, through our days, just recognizing, being aware of our differences. Because when you are aware that I'm different from you, when I'm aware that you're different from me, we're honoring each other. We're honoring each other. We're different and we love each other. We're different and we respect each other. We're different and we accept each other, just as we are. That's what love is all about. That's how we keep open the door of our hearts. That's how we keep open the door of our hearts. And so as we walk through this world, being aware of our differences, then the other thing that we want to do is to let go of the whataboutism. Whataboutism. When I spoke last week about recognizing the intrinsic value in everyone and connecting with each other, I had quite a few people ask me at the back door, well, what about this person? What about that person? What about if this? What about, let's let go of what about. Because what about means there's an exception somewhere. There's only one life. There's only one power. There's only one presence. There's only one mind. There's only one breath. There's only one activity. That's God. No exception. We are each made in the image and likeness of that one. No exception. We are each and all made in the image and likeness of that one. No exception. So when I say that, it tickles me when somebody says, well, what about, that person too is made in the image and likeness and out of pure spirit. And so what we have to come to do is to recognize that we are all expressions of the one mind, of the one power, of the one presence, of the one life. And that one expresses through each one of us according to our own uniqueness. That one expresses through each one of us according to our own openness, our own availability to it. That one expresses through each one of us according to our own consciousness. And if there's one of lower consciousness or less availability, that one can express only to the degree that that person is open, that that person is awake, that that person is aware. Doesn't mean that they aren't made in the image and likeness and out of pure spirit. It just means that spirit can only go where there's an opening. God can only work to the ability, to the degree that God can work through us. God can only work for us to the degree that He can work through us. And so when we get into this place of anger, and when we get into this place of judgment, and when we get into this place of being fed up, and we do get there, of being fed up, we still have to recognize that those people that we are fed up with are still a part of this oneness, are still a part of that one. So how can I be at peace in my life? How can I keep the door of my heart open, even when I see things that I don't like, even when I see things that just really bother me? Even when I see people that really bother me, how can I keep open the door of my heart? How can I do that? I can let go of the whataboutism. I can move back to what I say I believe. I can move back to what we teach here, that there's only one life. There's only one life, and that life is ever expressing in and through and as all. In and through and as all. I can keep moving back to that truth that I know. And I can deepen in my own practice. I can deepen in my own life. I can be more forgiving in my own life. I can be more forgiving in my own circle. I can be more forgiving of myself when I miss the mark. I can be more loving in my heart. And when I do that, it touches the hearts, it touches the lives of all with whom I come in contact. This is how we make that change that's going to come. This is how we make that change that's going to come. And the other thing is that it's easy to embrace the diversity in oneness. It's easier because it's easier to talk about the diversity in oneness because we can see that diversity. That's something we see straight up. Coming up, we see the diversity as we look around. The thing that's more difficult for us is seeing the oneness in the diversity. Seeing the oneness in diversity. We see the diversity all in here, but seeing the oneness in the diversity is where our work is. Seeing the oneness in the diversity means seeing God in everyone, means seeing God in everything. It means knowing that God is there even if you got to really look. If you got to really look for it. And you got to take a deep breath and you got to really look again. And sometimes you have to make yourself look. I find myself doing that sometimes. Rather than closing my eyes, but looking and just knowing God is in there. This person is acting according to this person's own uniqueness, and God is in the midst of it all. God is in the midst. That person is made in the image and likeness just as I am. That's what we have to come to realize. That's what we have to really start to believe. That's what we have to really accept as the truth of our being, the truth for all of us. There's a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's called Please Call Me by My True Names. It's kind of long, but what it says, in part, is that I am always arriving in every second to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird in a new nest, learning to sing in my new nest, wings still fragile, to be a caterpillar in the midst of a flower, to be a jewel hiding inside a stone. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that are alive. I am the mayfly, metamorphosing on a river. And I am a bird which, when spring comes, arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I am a frog happily swimming on a clear water pond. And I am the grass snake that approaches silently and feeds itself on the frog. I am a child in Uganda, all skin and bones, legs so thin as bamboo sticks, and I'm an arms merchant, selling deadly weapons to the people of Uganda. I'm a 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. Please call me by my true names so that I can change and so that my heart can open the door of compassion. And so when we call it all and them all by the true name of God, that's diversity. The mayfly, the bird, the frog, the snake, the child, the arms merchant, the girl on the boat, the sea pirate. It's all God. They're all made in the image and likeness and out of God. And so when we start to look at the whataboutism, it's all God. God is indeed all that there is. God is indeed all that there is. The only power, the only presence, the only mind, the only life, the only breath. We are all in this onlyness together. We're all in this onlyness together. Let's take a breath. Look around you. Look at the person next to you. Look around. Don't be afraid to look at the person next to you. Look at somebody you don't know. We're all in this together. We're all a part of the one. There's only one of us here. There's only one of us here. Breathe that in. There's only one of us here. That one is called God, or whatever name you choose to call it. It doesn't matter to God. I call it God. You can call it intelligence. You can call it spirit. You can call it Allah. You can call it Buddhic mind. You can call it Atman presence. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter to God what you call it. You don't have to call it anything. You don't have to call it anything. You don't have to call it anything. Just know the truth about it, that it is, whatever that is all there is. And the sooner we get to know that, the sooner we get to live that, and you know, we know it when we start to live it. There's an old saying in religious science that your knowing is showing. Your knowing is showing. We can know it as much as we want, but if we aren't living it, do we really know it? Do we really know it? And so I invite you to let your knowing show now. Let what you know show. If you know that God is all there is, then act like it. That's how change happens. If you know that God is all there is, then treat each other that way. Not just us in this room, but once we walk off this campus. If we know that God is all there is, then let God be all there is. Everywhere, in every aspect of our lives. And so I invite you, take a breath. Feel and sense into that presence that is ever arriving every second. That presence that is our very life. That presence that only knows itself. It only knows itself. It doesn't know all these differences. It only knows itself, and it knows itself as one. That's how we want to know it. That's how we want to live it. That's how we change the world. Let's take a breath and just turn within in this moment. As we turn within in this moment, just knowing that one power, that one life, that one mind, that one breath, God, Spirit, intelligence, presence, no name. That's something that beats my heart. That's something that breathes me in each of us. That something is my very life. And it is the life of each of us here this day. That something is whole, that something is perfect, that something is complete, that something is the all that is. That something is that within which I live and move and have my being. And it lives and moves and has its being in each of us. And so knowing this truth, I speak a word for each of us this day. I speak the word of healing. Healing our sense of separation, healing our sense of otherness, healing in every aspect of our lives, whether it's in our body temple, our bodies of affairs, our relationships, our homes, our families. Healing the broken hearts, those who have experienced loss of any kind. Just knowing that the power and the presence of God is right where each of us is always. Always guiding us, always directing us, always showing us the way, always available and seeking to reveal its wholeness in and through and as our lives. So I'm accepting this healing for each of us this day. Healing of our minds, our bodies, our spirits. Uplifting us. Loving us. Healing us. And so as I open this circle of prayer, I pause momentarily so you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer. You may speak it silently or aloud, but you may speak it now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God is in the midst of everything that's going on in each and every life. I know that healing is happening in each and every life. This prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer this day. I know that God is. This prayer goes out into this country, our country this day. Healing the sense of separation, the sense of otherness. Just allowing forgiveness and compassion to bubble up into all hearts. Allowing love and peace of mind to bubble up into all lives. Allowing the power and the presence of God to reveal itself in all lives, in all situations, in all circumstances. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for the blessings of our lives. Thank you, Father, Mother God, infinite presence, divine Mother, for everything. I simply allow it to be now. And so it is.